Hello YouTube, my name is Alexander, and this is the first of what I hope to be many videos on politics, religion, science, education, and life in general. As this is my first video, I think I should probably say a little bit about myself. I am first and foremost a skeptic. Uh, if I had one guiding principle that oversaw my life, it is my skepticism. My skepticism has driven me to want to understand the world around me, so that is the reason that I am currently studying physics with a goal of eventually having a doctorate in physics. It has also driven me to my position on religion, which is that of atheism. I would describe myself as an agnostic atheist, which I will just from this point on call myself an atheist. So what I mean by that is that I hold the position that I do not believe in God. I stand unconvinced of the existence of a God or any gods, be it the Christian God, the Islamic God, the Hindu gods, or the Greek gods. Any gods, I have yet to have a sufficient amount of evidence or a strong enough argument for their existence. So, with that being said, let's get to this video. This video, I was hoping to make a video that the friends that I have on Facebook who I disagree with could watch it and perhaps understand why I don't agree with them. So I offered what could be the most basic of question in the argument of theism versus atheism, and that would be, why do you believe that God exists? Or the way that I worded it was, what is the best argument or evidence you have for the existence of God? Now, I received one response. I was somewhat disappointed, and that response was, my only question would be, where did the first particle come from? Now, I think that this is a very good question. I think that in general, it's something that we should investigate. We are actively investigating. I think that we have good answers for it. I will confess that even though I study physics, this is a question that I have not got a solid answer on, but I will give the best of my layman's explanation of what I think has happened. Alright, but before I get to that, I want to discuss a slight problem I have with this question being offered here. The evidence for God's existence should not be in any lack of information that we have. That's called an argument from ignorance. Essentially what it says is, here's a question that we don't understand, and we don't know the answer to yet. There's this group of people over here who says that God did it. Can they show that God did it? No, they just say that God did, or at least none of them can show it that I've seen so far. And so they want to insert God here without any reasonable evidence for it. So this is a fallacy. It's a logical fallacy. Being a fallacy doesn't mean that the argument is wrong. It means that the argument doesn't support the conclusion you want. It could be true that God did do it, but saying we don't know the answer, therefore God did, doesn't get us any closer to the truth. There's many examples of this throughout history where we've had things that we didn't know, and people have tried to insert usually some sort of supernatural explanation. That once we find the answer, we realize that that supernatural explanation was not a good reason. A great example of this is before germ theory. Before we realized that disease in our body either comes from a malfunction of our body or from germs, from little microbes that we could never have seen before the invention of the microscope. Before that, people thought that things like demons or the displeasure of God was the cause of our disease. And we now realize that that's not the case. That's the reason that when you go to a doctor, you don't have a doctor praying over you. Well, they might pray, but they also do medicine. They do things that have been supported by science. I hope that they're doing things that are supported by science. There's a lot of doctors out there who aren't, but that's for another video. And it could be that we will eventually come to questions that we will never answer. Actually, it's probably very likely. Things like, well, we're getting closer and closer to understanding the moment of the Big Bang. But there's reasons to think that we may never be able to understand the exact moment that the Big Bang started, or whatever initiated that. So even though we might never be able to say what happened there, that doesn't mean that we then insert God. And actually, I think that theists should realize that this argument is a bad idea. That means that if this is your evidence for God, then your God is nothing more than a shrinking body of knowledge that we don't know yet. And I don't think any theist would wish to have a God whose power seems to diminish as science seems to increase. So, now, to answer your question, where did the first particle come from? As I said, I am not an expert in cosmology yet. I'm hoping to study that, but I'm not there yet. My understanding, in a very layman's explanation, is if you were to take the universe and take everything that is there, and then knowing Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, you could take that mass and you could figure out how much energy it would take to bring that matter into existence. Or what we normally see is actually to how much energy would be freed if you were to destroy that matter. So you take all of that energy from all of the matter in the universe, plus all of the energy of other forms. And then as the universe collapses down into smaller and smaller and smaller regions, the energy per area, energy per volume of the universe would necessarily increase, because energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's the first law of thermodynamics. And so that would mean that that amount of energy would continue to increase. Now, when the Big Bang happened, the universe was very, very, very small. So that amount of energy was distributed over a very small volume. Now, there's something that has been observed in laboratories that is called pair-anti-pair production, where when the energy of free space has increased to a sufficient amount, you can actually have the production of one, what we've seen in the laboratory is one electron and one anti-electron, also called a positron, or a hole. And these seem to just arise spontaneously out of free space. So that's my understanding of what we believe happened in the early moments of the universe, is that with all of this energy, this very high density of energy throughout the very small universe at the time, it was very, very likely that a lot of these pair-anti-pair productions would take place. And actually what we see in the matter around us is the imbalance. It's the matter that escaped recombining with the antimatter that it found. And so that would be where not just the first particle, but every particle that we see around us has come from. So I hope that has answered your question. I hope I was succinct and clear about why this argument, even if I couldn't offer an argument or an explanation of where the first particle came from, why that would not be a good argument for the existence of God. All right, well, thank you, and good night.